In today's episode of the Let's Talk Psychology podcast, we'll explore why many intelligent children often grow up to feel isolated and struggle later in life. This recording includes subtitles, allowing you to follow along carefully and reflect at your own pace. Why is it that so many bright kids grow up feeling trapped, disconnected, and alone? They were once considered ahead of their peers, praised, rewarded, and constantly told they would achieve great things. Yet somewhere along the way, that promise turned into pressure. What once felt like admiration slowly became a burden. Now many of those same children who used to stand out for their potential find themselves struggling as adults. They can't seem to find motivation, feel socially out of sync, and have difficulty beginning or completing tasks, or even forming meaningful connections. The hardest part is that they often can't explain what went wrong. From the outside, everything appears fine. They're still intelligent, still capable, but inside there's an ongoing sense of detachment, as if life is moving forward for everyone else while they remain on the sidelines, simply observing. And there's an explanation for this. Many gifted children end up tying their entire sense of self-worth to their intelligence. When that happens, the very trait that once made them feel confident begins to hold them back. What once made them feel unique as children often becomes the very thing that holds them back as adults. So let's explore why this happens and, more importantly, how to break free from it. Because this isn't about failure. It's about a survival strategy that simply stopped working. And once you understand how it formed, you can begin to move beyond it. When we're young, our sense of self is usually simple. Kids tend to hold on to one or two defining traits and build their identity around them. For example, a child might see themselves as the kid who loves Pokemon or only eats chicken nuggets. It's one-dimensional, but that's normal. That's how identity begins. Basic, clear, and built around interests or labels. And one of the most powerful labels a child can receive is, "You're smart." That phrase sticks. It's reinforced by parents, teachers, and classmates until it becomes central to how you view yourself. For a while, it feels great. Being the smart kid earns praise, attention, and validation. You get used to life feeling easy. You don't need to study as hard as others. You learn quickly, stand out, and it feels like you're always one step ahead. But here's the hidden cost. When people call you smart, they're often praising effortless success, not persistence or hard work. You're rewarded for solving problems quickly, for getting high grades without trying, for understanding things right away. Over time, you start believing something dangerous. If I'm smart, things should come easily. That belief quietly undermines you as you grow up. Because the moment something doesn't come easily, when you fail, struggle, or can't grasp something right away, it doesn't feel like a normal challenge. It feels like a threat to your identity. You think, if I'm supposed to be smart, then why am I struggling? So instead of embracing difficulty, you begin to avoid it. You don't raise your hand unless you're sure of the answer. You don't play games unless you know you can win. You stop trying new things that might expose you as less capable than you appear. Slowly, your world starts to shrink. You only do what you're already good at. You stay in your comfort zone. You protect the image of the smart kid instead of allowing yourself to grow. And that's the trap. While others are out experimenting, failing, and developing new skills, you stay stuck in the familiar. Your comfort zone keeps getting smaller, and the longer you stay there, the harder it becomes to leave. Eventually, you realize your whole identity is built on something fragile. You can't risk failing looking foolish, or losing the label that's defined you for so long, so you stall. And that's when isolation starts to creep in, because once you stop growing, you also stop connecting. Think about it. Connection often grows from shared experiences, being part of a team, facing awkward moments together, or working toward a common goal. But when you begin to step away from these experiences, when you avoid the settings where real bonds are formed, you lose the chance to create genuine friendships and connection. You might skip joining a club because you fear you won't be good at it. You avoid trying a new sport because it feels unfamiliar. You pass on group projects because they tend to frustrate you. Without realizing it, you gradually distance yourself from the natural rhythm of social life. Yet, the need for connection doesn't disappear. So what happens then? You turn to what feels safe, your intelligence. Instead of connecting with people through shared experiences, you try to understand them from a distance. You observe, analyze, and mentally simulate social situations. This approach can develop something known as cognitive empathy. the ability to logically understand what others are feeling without actually sharing those emotions. It's useful to a point. You can manage conversations, fit in socially, and maybe even appear confident or charming. But beneath the surface, it's draining. Because instead of simply being present with others, you're constantly calculating your next move, thinking rather than feeling your way through connection, constantly thinking about what to say, how to respond, and what others might be thinking. Socializing slowly turns into something you feel pressured to excel at. And when there's a risk of failing at it, you begin to avoid it altogether. That's when the loneliness starts to grow deeper. But you're intelligent, right? You assume you can reason your way out of this, so you begin applying logic to emotional problems. You try to repair your self-esteem through analysis and rational thought. You write down arguments to convince yourself that you're fine. You overanalyze every action and feeling, yet none of it truly helps. Because intelligence wasn't meant to heal emotional pain. It's a tool for solving external problems, not for creating inner peace or self-worth. And when you try to use intellect to fill emotional gaps, your thoughts just circle endlessly. There's no logical solution to the question, am I enough? That answer can only come from emotional understanding. And for many intelligent people, that's the very area left underdeveloped. When the emotional weight becomes too heavy, when loneliness turns almost unbearable, the ego steps in for protection. You begin to tell yourself, I'm just different from everyone else. You rationalize that you can't connect because others aren't as insightful or thoughtful as you are. You start believing you're too deep for ordinary friendships, and instead of acknowledging your loneliness, you reframe it as superiority, convincing yourself you've outgrown the need for connection. You act like you don't care what everyone else thinks, not because you truly believe it, but because admitting that you feel left out would hurt more. This is known as defensive arrogance, and it's one of the most isolating habits a person can develop. It builds a barrier between you and the world around you. Even when you crave connection, that wall keeps you from reaching for it, because connection takes humility. It requires presence, honesty, and the courage to be seen for who you really are. So how do we change this? The first step, and it's absolutely essential, is to stop identifying yourself as the smart one. You need to let go of that label. Not because intelligence is wrong, but because tying your self-worth to it can be deeply harmful. When your value depends on how easily you succeed, you'll do anything to avoid effort, mistakes, or challenges that might suggest you're not extraordinary. You'll start to hold yourself back just to protect that fragile image. And sooner or later, that image will fall apart. The real solution is to build a new identity, not around being smart, but around being open to growth. You stop asking me what will make me look clever, and instead ask, what will help me move forward? You stop protecting your pride and start accepting discomfort. You allow yourself to try new things. Even if you fail, you show up not to prove something but to participate. Yes, it's awkward. Yes, it's uncomfortable. It can feel like you're moving backward, but you're not, because this is the first genuine step toward becoming whole. The old version of you believed your worth came from being special. The new version understands your worth comes from simply being human. And being human means it's okay to be uncertain, it's okay to grow slowly, it's okay to feel lost or unsure of yourself. You don't need to have everything figured out. What matters is that you take action anyway, not perfect action, not calculated action, just honest, imperfect human effort. So if you feel stuck, disconnected, or numb, if you've spent your life trying to be the smartest person in every room and now don't know who you are without that, this is where you begin. You let go of that story. You stop trying to impress and start trying to be authentic, because you don't need to be the smartest person in the room to belong there. You just need to be real. You just need to be someone who's willing to keep showing up even when things feel difficult, uncertain, or uncomfortable. If you can do that, if you can stop holding on to the version of yourself that always needs to appear detached or unaffected, you'll begin to notice something you might have missed for a long time. Connection. Not because you earned it, not because you had to prove anything, but simply because you chose to step down from the pedestal and back into the shared space where everyone else exists. And you may find that this space isn't as bad as you thought. In fact, it's the only place where you can truly be seen and, more importantly, where you can finally feel at home. So, if any part of this spoke to you, if you recognized yourself in these patterns or felt something shift that you've struggled to express before, share your thoughts in the comments. Chances are, you're not the only one feeling this way. Sometimes, naming the pattern is the first real step toward changing it. Thanks for tuning in to the Let's Talk Psychology podcast. Take care of your mind, and I'll see you in the next episode.